Have you ever heard of a war that lasted over a century? No, I'm not talking about a sci-fi movie. This was a real, brutal, and world-changing conflict, the Hundred Years' War. But here's the kicker, it didn't actually last 100 years. It was a series of conflicts that raged on and off for 116 years, from 1337 to 1453. So, what could possibly keep two powerful nations, England and France, at each other's throats for that long? Grab a seat, because this story is more than just battles. It's about crowns, crises, and the birth of nations. It all started with a family squabble of epic proportions. Back in 1328, the French king, Charles IV, died without a male heir. This created a huge power vacuum. The closest male relative was none other than King Edward III of England. His mother was Isabella, Charles IV's sister. By blood, he had a pretty solid claim. But the French nobility? They were not about to hand their crown over to an English king. Citing an old, conveniently rediscovered law called Salic law, which they claimed barred inheritance through a female line, they crowned a French cousin, Philip VI, instead. Edward was furious. For a while, he played along, but tensions simmered. The final straw came when Philip VI tried to confiscate an English-held territory in France called Gascony. In 1337, Edward III declared himself the rightful king of France, and just like that, the war was on. The first phase of the war was a stunning success for the English. You have to understand, the English army was different. They relied on professional, paid soldiers, especially their legendary longbowmen. The French, on the other hand, still clung to the old ways of feudal knights, heavily armored nobles who were often undisciplined. At the Battle of Crécy in 1346, a smaller English army absolutely decimated a much larger French force. The English longbows rained arrows down on the charging French knights, proving that new tactics could triumph over old traditions. 10 years later, at the Battle of Poitiers, it was déjà vu. The English, led by Edward's son, the Black Prince, not only defeated the French but captured their king, John II. Imagine the shock. France was thrown into chaos, forced to sign a humiliating treaty and pay a massive ransom. It looked like England was on the brink of total victory. But just as England seemed unstoppable, fate intervened. The Black Death, a devastating plague, swept across Europe, killing millions and crippling both kingdoms. On top of that, a new, capable French king, Charles V, came to the throne. He was smart. Instead of facing the English in open battle, he used guerrilla tactics, wearing them down, retaking territory piece by piece. With the help of his brilliant general, Bertrand du Guesclin, Charles V managed to push the English back until they held only a few coastal towns. By 1380, it seemed the tide had completely turned in France's favor. Both kingdoms were exhausted, and a shaky peace settled over the land. But this was only an intermission. The war reignited in the early 15th century, and this time, it was thanks to chaos within France itself. The French king, Charles VI, suffered from severe mental illness, leaving a power vacuum. Two noble factions, the Armagnacs and the Burgundians, began a bloody civil war for control. Seeing his chance, the ambitious new king of England, Henry V, invaded. Henry was a brilliant military commander, and at the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, he achieved one of the most famous victories in history. Outnumbered, stuck in the mud, his weary army of longbowmen once again annihilated the flower of French nobility. It was a catastrophe for France. Henry V then conquered Normandy and, allied with the Burgundians, forced the mentally fragile Charles VI to sign the Treaty of Troyes. This treaty was astounding. It disinherited the French king's own son, the Dauphin Charles, and named Henry V and his future sons as the heirs to the French throne. Henry even married the French king's daughter to seal the deal. The English crown was now also the French crown. It was the absolute peak of English power. But then, history took another wild turn. Just as he was on the verge of uniting the two kingdoms, Henry V died unexpectedly from dysentery. His son, Henry VI, was just an infant. Suddenly, the formidable English leadership was gone. The French claimant, the disinherited Dauphin Charles, saw his opportunity. But he was hesitant, lacking the funds and the confidence to fight back. This is where one of history's most iconic figures steps onto the stage, Joan of Arc. a young peasant girl who claimed to hear divine voices. She managed to convince the desperate Dauphin that she was sent by God to save France. Her presence was electrifying. She inspired the demoralized French army, leading them to a pivotal victory, lifting the siege of Orleans in 1429. This victory was a massive morale booster. It convinced everyone that God was truly on France's side. Joan then led the Dauphin deep into enemy territory to be crowned King Charles VII at Reims, the traditional site for coronations. This symbolic act legitimized his rule and unified the French people behind him. Though Joan was tragically captured by the Burgundians and executed by the English as a heretic, her spirit had changed everything. She had awakened a sense of national identity and pride in the French people. They weren't just fighting for a feudal lord anymore. They were fighting for France. Charles VII, now a confident king, reformed his army and his government. He also made a crucial peace deal with the Duke of Burgundy, abandoning the English. Now, England was isolated and facing a united, revitalized France. The final phase of the war saw the French systematically reconquer their lands. They started using cannons effectively to smash down castle walls, rendering the old English strongholds obsolete. One by one, English-held territories fell. The final blow came at the Battle of Castillon in 1453. In a reversal of Crécy and Agincourt, a French army, using powerful artillery, crushed an English force. With this defeat, the English lost all their territory in France except for the small port of Calais. The war just fizzled out. No grand treaty was signed. The English, facing their own civil war at home, the Wars of the Roses, simply couldn't fight anymore. So what was the point of it all? The 100 Years' War was a transformative conflict. For France, it forged a sense of national unity out of a patchwork of feudal territories. The monarchy emerged stronger than ever. For England, losing its continental ambitions forced it to look inward and outward, towards the sea, setting the stage for its future as a naval and colonial power. Militarily, it marked the end of the mounted knights' dominance and the beginning of modern warfare, with professional infantry and artillery. It was a brutal, bloody 116 years that saw heroes and villains, incredible victories, and devastating defeats. It's a testament to how conflicts over power and identity can shape the very destiny of nations, leaving a legacy that we can still see today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's most epic conflicts. If you enjoyed this journey back in time and want to learn more, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another story. Let me know in the comments what piece of history you'd like to explore next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.